What's up, everybody? Welcome to the basement. We're here with Brent Lengel, the creator of Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. Brent, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah. Hey, happy to be here. I'll drink with you.
Tell us a little bit about how you first created Snow White Zombie Apocalypse.
That's a heck of a story. So I moved to New York City in like 2009, and I came as a playwright. And the first play, not the first play I'd ever written, but the first one I ever had produced was called Snow White Zombie. And it actually started because I had just moved to the city. I was, wet behind the ears artist, and I saw an ad for a something called the Fairy Tale Smackdown 24-hour play contest. It was done by the now defunct New York Theater Experiment. So I sat down and I was like, okay, I know I want to write something with zombies. And they had this fairy tale, and for a while I'd been going back and forth on, do I write zombie Shakespeare or do I write zombie fairy tales? And I'm like, well, I can't write iambic pentameter. It's too complicated. So I was like, you know what? Here's a chance to get this idea off. And lightning just struck within, and I had to write the script, the original 10-minute play, and then we had to produce it and perform it all within 24 hours. It wound up being like one of the the script that you guys read in the comic itself is pretty much identical to the original 10-minute script, just realized in a comic format. Mm-hmm. So, the play premiered and people loved it. People came up to me afterwards, and you got to admit, I'd never had anything produced before, and they're like, "Oh my God, this play is amazing! It reads like something that somebody went to Yale wrote." And I'm like, "Well, you should tell Yale about that because they rejected me." Yeah, so then from there, I heard about a play festival in New York called the Estrogenius Festival, which is a celebration of female voices. And I said, well, that's kind of female-centered story. So I sent it in, and they loved it. It got produced in a much bigger way at Estro, like the following year. I think it was like 2010. And then that production was, again, like the perfect production. That's where we added martial arts to the beginning of it. There's a huge emphasis on like 70s kung fu in the story. And part of the reason why the zombies sort of do karate is I was like, well, it's going to be boring to put shambling zombies on stage, so let's have some fun with it. That production did really, really well. We won Audience's Choice, got extended for another week, and then a full-length version called Snow White Zombie Apocalypse premiered in the New York Fringe in 2012 or 2011, maybe. From there, the story, it got reproduced by Estro for the Best of Estro Genius 10-year anniversary, and then copies of it got published, and there's been some university productions. And the whole time I was thinking, I've loved comics my whole life. The biggest artistic influence on me, like some of the biggest ones, are like Bill Watterson and Neil Gaiman. And so I was like, I feel like this should really be a comic book. And for the longest time, I had no way of getting that done until I met Hondo Park, my artist. And from there, we created the book.
That's pretty incredible. That's an incredible story. I wish I would have known that this was a play. I would have loved to see this live action back in the day. I want to touch on something that you said, and you just kind of glossed over it like it was nothing. Karate kicking zombies?
Oh, yeah.
What's up there?
So this actually goes back. All right, I am a black belt in Kyokushin karate. I'm going to show you my... my showdown right there.
Nice. Congratulations. Os.
Yeah. I've actually knocked people out before. I scored a knockout in an international tournament in Canada like 2 years ago.
Kyokushin's pretty friggin' tough, man. I watched some of them videos, guys just blasting away into people's into chests and shit.
Yeah, without pads.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely nothing. Forget boxing gloves. Forget anything.
Yeah, you just, for those of you who aren't familiar with a Kyokushin karate match, like literally with knockdown, it's two black belts will square off and wail on each other's chests and thighs until somebody falls. It's amazing. Or the refs stop it. You can also kick in the head, but you can't punch in the face.
But no punches to the head, right?
Yeah. Because if they allowed punches to the head with like bare knuckle, like Kyokushin we wouldn't have faces.
You wouldn't have UFC because that's obviously the next step.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so anyway, martial arts have always been a big part of my life since high school. I had a chance to take a combination of Taekwondo and Goju-Ryu karate through my public school in Kentucky. Like my sophomore and senior year, where I actually trained under an ex-professional kickboxer. And one of the things that he taught us while we were learning was a thing called Juju-Ende, which was essentially choreographed fights where the goal was to show off your skills. And it was super fun because we were a bunch of high school kids, so we came up with all these like scenarios, and a lot of us were theater kids anyway. So when I got to New York, and the director, Lita Tremblay, who's a phenomenal director, she's like, look, you wrote a 10-minute play, and the Esther Genius Festival gave us 20 minutes. I think we should add a fight scene to the beginning. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And I thought about it, and I was like, okay, but I can cut it if it sucks. Because a lot of theater fighting is garbage. Like, the philosophy in theater is usually it needs to be safe first and look good second. I call it Star Trek fighting, like, because it looks like the old Star Trek stuff. And so we looked and looked and looked for a combat choreographer, couldn't find one. And I said, well, you know what? I used to do this, and I got together with my roommate who had been in the same karate class as me, and we just banged out like the choreography for like a 10-minute choreography routine for the beginning of the play, like in the park by the afternoon. Like, if you actually, this is really good and it ties into comics. You know the Luke Cage TV series on Netflix?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look in the background of one of the shots, he is standing by a band shell in Jackie Robinson Park. And that was right near my old apartment. And we actually choreographed the fight for Snow White Zombie in that band shell.
No shit.
No shit. Yeah. So, like, we put together essentially a Juju-Ende routine, and I'll tell you, it killed when it hit the stage because it was a small venue just off of Washington Square Park, and like I remember it opened with the big bad wolf attacks and kills Little Red Riding Hood, like you see in the story, and then like Rapunzel comes in and she gets attacked by the big bad wolf in the exact same way, but she like freaking flips the wolf over her shoulder. And when she did it, and when the wolf was played by my roommate at the time, when his feet hit the ground, there was this thud, and you could hear an audible gasp from the theater audience. Like, these people were not expecting anything like that. So yeah, I mean, that was how I sort of made my splash in the New York theater scene, and everything in my career grew from there. So in a way, that's the same story has come back, and it's how I've made my splash in the comic scene. So, yeah, martial arts are a big part of my life, and they're a big part of my art. And it's something that kind of very uniquely comes to my approach to pretty much everything, regardless of what I'm writing. I mean, I'm talking with my new artist for issue number 2, Luana, and literally I'm explaining to her over, email the difference between like the Kyokushin rolling thunder and like a spinning roundhouse kick.
Well, you clearly have to be sending videos of yourself doing that so you can better exemplify what you're talking about.
I wish. I can't do the rolling thunder.
I've always wanted to try that, man.
It's a great move. Like, one of these days I will maybe learn that. For those of you who don't know, by the way, like the rolling thunder is where you basically do a front roll in the air, and then your heel comes in, it turns into an axe kick, and you nail him in the face, or in the issue of the second, she hits the Woodsman in the shoulder with it.
I mean, first of all, I did not know it was actually called the Rolling Thunder. That makes it exponentially more awesome.
I'm sure there's a long, complicated Japanese name for it, but that's when I was looking online, I saw someone, I was like, what the hell is this kick called? Because in my dojo, we just called it a drop kick. But the drop kick is something a little different. So yeah, I've seen it called the Rolling Thunder, and I'm going with that.
So now you've got the Kickstarter up for issue 2 of Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. What can we expect from the issue?
Oh man, this is going to be absolutely incredible. So the concept with Snow White Zombie is that we are moving every 44 pages or so. We're going to change artist, and the reason we're doing that is because one, there's a lot of really great artists out there that I really want to showcase, but two, it's because like with fairy tales. You hear different fairy tales from different people in different incarnations, so they should have almost a mutable quality, kind of like how Sandman switched artists because dreams do the same thing. I mean, that's really what we're shooting for with the overall aesthetic of the series. Luana, in this case, is absolutely phenomenal. I was like just beside myself when I found her, and she's the perfect person to work on the second issue. In this issue, we're opening up the world a lot more. So the first issue was very heavily focused on the fight between Rapunzel and the Big Bad Wolf. That was a really big one, and then kind of the comedy with them discovering Snow White and building the characters. The second issue really opens up the world. So we're introducing several new antagonists and a new hero who starts off as an antagonist. The first one we have is Wolf Zombie Gretel. And the concept, one of the unique things that we do with zombies in this world is zombies kind of work on like a sire system, where if you are bitten by a zombie and you die and become a zombie, you take on aspects of that zombie in the afterworld. So if you're bitten by the zombie Big Bad Wolf, you're going to become wolf-like. And the longer you are a zombie, the more you turn into essentially an undead werewolf, which is super cool.
That sounds super fucked up. Honestly, gonna tell you right now.
Yeah, and so Zombie Gretel from Hansel and Gretel, she has been bit and has joined the Big Bad Wolf's pack when we encounter her at the beginning. And then she, of course, kind of runs afoul. I won't say exactly what happens there, but she runs afoul of one of our other heroes, the Woodsman. The Woodsman actually does Kyokushin karate. He will say os in this series. And he is a physical powerhouse, literally described as being built like a wrestler. But he prefers to attack from ambush. He fights with a woodcutter's axe and his own hands, and he is capable of going toe-to-toe with Rapunzel. And he is going to square off with Rapunzel in this issue, and that's going to be amazing. For those of you who didn't get the original series, like Rapunzel is a crazy badass, and she is a fighter very reminiscent of Bruce Lee, and in fact does the one-inch punch in the first issue.
I loved it. She's so awesome.
Yeah.
Zell. I love it.
And she'll get cooler and cooler as the series goes. But there's also some other really incredible characters coming up. We have the blood-covered king that you'll see a little bit of in this issue. This is Prince Charming's father, who died shortly after the beginning and has become kind of like a controller zombie. He's basically a lich. He commands some people, and he has a history both with Prince Charming and, spoiler, he's got a history with the Woodsman as well, and we'll see some of that.
You've got a little Dungeons and Dragons in you too, I see.
Oh, I'm a ginormous nerd, yeah. Dungeons and Dragons, Tolkien. This thing is, I mean, really, like, Swaza is a mashup, so there's a lot of horror elements to it, but also, like, beyond anything, I'm a fantasy fan. So, like, if you like The Witcher, you're going to love Swaza as it continues to grow. We're playing off a lot of these classic fairy tales, but ultimately, like, this is a horror, dark fantasy action series. It's also romance, both, capital R romances in the romantic movement, and it's also like a romantic story between the love triangle of Prince Charming, Snow White, and Rapunzel, which is just going to get cooler and cooler as we go.
He's such a douche, but you can't help but root for the guy at the same time. He's such a bro. Like, I kind of want to have a few beers with him, not for nothing.
Exactly. No. And I think, Charming is... He definitely is a frustrating character, but the important thing to remember about Charming is he's sincere. Like, he actually is in love with Rapunzel and Snow White and every other princess he sees, and that will continue to get developed as the series develops. Yeah, so he's a philanderer, but he's a lovable philanderer whose heart is in the right place.
So give us a rundown of some of the cooler prizes on the Kickstarter.
Okay, so the prize is available on the Kickstarter. First of all, we have copies of the comic. You can get from the original print run, which says one shot here, so you know it's from the original print run from Scout. I'm giving away 50 of these. I think something like 30 of them have already been bought, but signed and numbered. So, like, basically like a special limited edition version of this. We've already sold out of like most of our variant covers, but we still have like 1 or 2 of these left. This is the Carla Cohen variant. Only 150 of these were printed, and you can actually only get them through this Kickstarter and also at Collector's Cave in New York. It's a dealer exclusive, and these are all going to be signed and numbered. We've also got some really cool posters that are currently being printed. Brian Silverbacks has created a version of another antagonist I didn't get into, and this is the Undead Giant. That is the giant from Jack and the Beanstalk.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's huge, he's green, he's got a little Cthulhu going on with him, and he shows up in issue 2. The giant from Jack and the Beanstalk, there's a poster version of him, and then there's a copy of issue 2 that's got an alternate cover. There's also an alternate cover being created as we speak by Hondo Park, the artist from the first issue. And I anticipate to continue to work with him in the future because he's absolutely amazing. So there's those premiums. Other premiums you can get too that are maybe a little crazier than the standard, postcard, poster, comic book. At $50, I will make a fool out of myself and do a kata for you on screen. You will get sent and do with it what you will. And I will also answer any question, be it art, any art-related question, martial arts or arts in general. So that comes in at the $50 level along with like the comics and a random poster of the 5 posters we have available. There's 3 different levels where you can get my help as a artist and as a writer at varying levels, like coverage on your scripts. You can join a masterclass with me where I can teach you about playwriting, screenwriting, writing comics, and there's even a way where I can help you create your own comic script and pitch it to actual publishers and hopefully get you a comic series, which is I that's expensive, but also like this is like before I was able to do this, I would always meet these pros. I'm like, how do you do it? How do you do? And I never got a satisfactory answer. I can't guarantee you'll get it published, but I can give you a satisfactory answer. Now, beyond that, though, this gets even better. There are cameos within Swaza to varying levels. So you can have a cameo as someone dying horribly and or as a zombie. At a little higher level, you can get a cameo as a character with at least 1 line of dialogue. And at the highest level, you can actually become a character in the Swaza world. You're guaranteed to appear in at least 3 issues, and you will have a name and dialogue and everything. So
that's honestly what I was hoping for. I at least wanted to be like a zombie or something running around.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Well, my friend Michael Vincent Bramley, when he ran his Kickstarter, I bought a cameo in his, and there is now an evil version of me. He does a comic called Sherbet, which is about a lesbian, drug-addicted Sherlock Holmes in kind of a Lovecraftian steampunk world. And there is an evil version of me where I'm like an uncouth billionaire. Like literally there's like there's a picture of me in the comic where I have a thing on my table where like it's like Brent Lengel gives to the poor, and it's a like Fortune magazine with me peeing on like a homeless guy. Yeah, so there's an evil alternate version of me in there if you ever pick up his graphic novel, which is phenomenal, by the way. He's an incredible writer, great artist. I highly recommend you check it out. So there's the cameos, and then we have the cherry on top of everything. So you guys have noticed I'm a little bit of a nut, right?
Sanity is overrated, my friend.
Exactly. So if you pledge at the highest level of this Kickstarter, I will take you and 2 of your friends to Iceland for a 1-week trip. 3 days in Reykjavik, 4 days in the Icelandic wilderness where I guide you along the Laugavegur Trail. I am an Appalachian Trail 2,000 miler, which means I've walked from Maine to Georgia. I spent 6 months living in the woods before I moved to New York. I'm an expert hiker and outdoorsman. Woodsman's maybe a little bit based on me. I'm not as buff as he is in the comic, though. But I will take you through the Icelandic wilderness along the Laugavegur Trek. Laugavegur, you can look it up. It is one of like the top 25 hikes to do before you die. You walk through the Icelandic wilderness. The landscape changes every day. I'm talking rainbow mountains. I'm talking like deserts of black sand with huge pyramidal mountains that are green. They're like neon green with not grass or trees, but moss growing out of them. And I am a New York State certified wilderness guide who has 3 times guided international professional trips through this area. So I'll take you out there. I'll handle all the accommodations, ground transportation, help you pack. I'm going to cook for you every day that we are in the wilderness, and I'll handle your lodging in Reykjavik. All you got to do is pay for your flight, make sure you're properly equipped, and get yourself to Iceland. And we're going to do that, and it's going to be the adventure of a lifetime. So
that sounds really wild. That's probably one of the coolest, craziest Kickstarter tiers I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, well, I wear many hats, and honestly, I really want, like, people were like, "Oh, did you put that up as a joke?" I'm like, "No, it's not a joke." And then they're like, "Okay, do you really want someone to buy it?" I'm like, "Yes, I want someone to buy it because I want to go and do this again." It's amazing, and like honestly, like Iceland is a country that like I can't even express how cool it is, especially if you're a fantasy fan. Like I've been to the places where they shot Game of Thrones. Like, like the Eyrie where they've got everybody like approaching like where the Arya and the Hound are hanging out.
Yeah, there's like the ridges all over the place, and they're walking through that little valley. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Thingvellir. I've been there. It's where the American and the European continental plates meet. Yeah. They shot pretty much a lot of the north is shot in Iceland and Northern Ireland. The Eyrie, anything in there, that's almost exclusively at Thingvellir. And right there's the drowning pool. I used to do executions there, so you walk by this gorgeous pool of water, and sometimes people want to sit down by it and stuff. And then the guide is like, by the way, so they didn't believe it was right to behead or hang a woman, so women convicted of capital crimes would be drowned right there. We go over like part of the trip, which we can do if people want to do it. There's the Gulfus, which is the golden waterfall that has a permanent rainbow over top of it. We can visit that and visit Thingvellir. But like Lagavegur, it means road to hot springs, and it's about a 40-mile hike. You do about 6 to 10 miles a day, and you stay in geothermally heated huts. There's natural hot springs you can soak in along the way, and it's one of the best places on Earth. And like you'll find like once you've been to Iceland and you've seen it, you'll start noticing it in other movies. Like if you watch Rogue One, the planet at the beginning, yeah, that's Iceland.
Wow, that is really incredible. I can't wait to look into this. I haven't had a chance to get a look at the Kickstarter yet, but you can already count on the basement's undying support.
Awesome.
By the way, I really like the acronym SWAZA. That's SWAZA. Fantastic.
Yeah. Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. Yeah, I've been, that just came to me, I think, just because I got tired of typing out Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. And
yeah, no, I hear you. It's a long hashtag. I won't lie.
Yeah, so I mean, like this show, what I really loved, by the way, when I first saw this because you just popped up in my Google thing, in my Google results when you were talking about it, and the reaction from the basement, I gotta say, was exactly what I was looking for as a creator. Like, you caught everything that I was trying to do with that series, and like, it was literally like the fan reaction that I was like, when I was making the comic, I was just like, oh my God, somebody's gonna see this, and they're gonna feel this way, and it's gonna be amazing. And then also that you mentioned you wanted to see a live action version of it. I'm a screenwriter. I'm actually trained by 3 people, and a former HBO exec, an Emmy Award-winning screenwriter named Jacob Kruger, who teaches in New York, and George Straighton, who I learned action from him. He used to write for Xena and Hercules, and he helped me develop the 1-hour pilot for this show that I'm trying to get Hollywood to pay attention to at the moment.
Dude, I want to see this. I wish I would have seen this shit on stage, but I would love to see this as a Netflix series. It's just so awesome. And I mean, like you said, Ramon and I had so much fun with just the first issue. We laughed our asses off, and it's always a natural reaction that you're going to get from us. I loved this series, and you can count on us for support, man. I'm definitely jumping in on that Kickstarter. Whatever I can afford, I'm jumping in. I promise you that much. I want to be in the series. I really do.
Oh, please do. And like I said, I would love to write you into the series. I think you got a great personality, so it would work out really well.
Yeah, I've always kind of wondered where I would fit in the like original Grimm's fairy tales. Like, how could I possibly help out with this story?
Absolutely. And, like I said, especially at the higher levels of that, depending upon where you want to come in at, like we can talk about it and really find a way to work your character into the story. So that'll be really cool. The other thing, by the way, that is going on with this, because for people, if the trip to Iceland is for 3 people, so you can always split that among your friends, and that can make it a little bit easier to afford because it is expensive. Um, the other stuff that I wanted to talk about, actually, because you mentioned the humor in it, because yeah, it's a really funny book, and I don't think we've gone into that a little bit here. So for those of you who haven't read it, like, this kind of begins with Prince Charming like kissing Snow White in her coffin, and then suddenly, like, yeah, Rapunzel's like,
Were you just kissing a dead person?
yeah. There's another really funny moment in the first issue is like when Rapunzel offers Snow White a bite of her apple, and somebody's like, no. I it was very important to me to not take. So the characters take themselves very seriously, and everything that happens in the world is deadly serious. But from the perspective of the audience, it's also hilarious.
Yes.
I use a lot of dramatic irony, and also there's a big thing that I have in my approach to horror. In particular, and that is that horror has to be mixed with comedy. And the reason why is it actually goes back to my theater training. There's a French school of theater called the Guignol, like Grand Guignol. And I learned about this in college, where they would do an evening of short plays, and the first play would be horror, and then the second play would be comedy, and then the third play would be horror, and then comedy, and then horror, and each would play off against each other to where the horror was more horrifying because you'd just been laughing at the comedy, and the laughs were bigger because you'd just been terrified by the horror. So that's a big aspect to the creative approach of Swaza, and you can really expect a lot more of that going forward, on top of, like, heart-stopping, ass-kicking action, and some really cool fantasy elements.
I can't wait to see karate kicking zombies thrown out on the page. By the way, you might be the very first pioneer into the idea of zombies that fight back. First of all, that's number one, and it's funny the way you say that. Like, I didn't actually think of it, but you're absolutely right. The juxtaposition of how serious this predicament is for the characters in the story, but for the omniscient reader, it's friggin' hilarious.
Yeah. And that's, that was really important. Like, whenever I talk to the actors, I was always like, look, you've got to play this straight. It will play it straight and trust that it will be funny. And there are times also when the characters are being funny and know they're being funny. But again, it's motivated from a character place. I think one of the reviews said, and one of the more uncharitable interpretations occasionally people have when they see like Snow White zombie apocalypse is they think I basically came in and was like, oh, here's a book where we murder a bunch of Disney characters. Ha ha ha. And, I could have done that, but that's easy. And there's not really much to it beyond, just the novelty of the bloodbath. There's a lot more to this story than the novelty. And there's also, like, some pretty salient themes that we're working with. I spend a lot of time, commenting on relationships, and those themes of, especially because I wrote this thing in my early 20s when I just moved to New York, and I'm like, oh, here's my girlfriend. She's wonderful. Do I marry her? Do I not marry her? All of this stuff was swirling around in my head when I wrote it, and that made its way onto the page in a very fun way.
Dude, I wish you nothing but the best of luck with this. Like I said, the basement is behind you 110%. I highly encourage everyone out there to check out Swaza, Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. Check out the Kickstarter. Chime in where you can. It's well worth it. You're going to have a lot of fun with this series because we did, and we will never lie to you. We'll never lie to you.
Absolutely. We are 70% funded right now. If you guys can push us to our goal, you will allow me to stop freaking out about it, and I can get back to making the comic.
You'll definitely reach your goal. I promise you that. Salud.
Yeah. Salud.
Os. Thank you for being with us, man.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah, and os.
Pete's Basement is copyrighted 2020. Ripped Productions. All rights reserved. So go fuck yourself.
We legitimately had the best 5-minute fight scene of just pure like
Yeah.
blood shit. We were watching the Street Fighter animated movie and Fatal Fury at the time, so we had all sorts of wild shit thrown in there.
Oh wait, you watched the Fatal Fury animated movie? So
It was one of my first forays into anime.
I freaking love that movie, and like, in fact, actually, in our Juju Ende, we did the burn knuckle, bruise knuckle.
Really?
Yes.
Oh shit.
It's so cool too, because like you were doing that in New York, we were doing it in like rural Kentucky at the time. It's amazing how art
bridges distance.
Yeah, it's amazing how art affects lives like that, though. You know, really, like, because and art informs art.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You being such a fan of Fatal Fury, you would also know that Terry Bogard has a move called the crack shot, which is almost exactly like that.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. You're right.
Your mind just exploded.